Could Jeffrey Epstein possibly be redeemed in Hazbin Hotel? So, this question isn't really definitive because we've only seen one person be redeemed, and that's Serpentious. Now, hold on. The only person close to Jeffrey Epstein is Valentino, and even he didn't get close to the amount of crimes that Jeffrey Epstein did. So, one has to be redeemed in which he does the opposite of his sin. He does good, but in relation to their sin. Now, you may be asking me, how would he redeem his sin? Which, the answer to that, I don't know. But there's a theory, I'm pretty sure, that angel dust actually can redeem himself, in which, as we know, as of now, that he kills his father, he has to save a life, and then he has to die, because Serpentious died, and then he went to heaven after he redeemed his sin. Now, I have an idea which Jeffrey Epstein could redeem himself, in which he saves children, but the cannibalism, I don't know how he redeems that. Pretty sure he should save children from being eaten. He could maybe try and stop that in Cannibal Town, but we don't know their habits. Viv conveniently let out predators, Nazis, and people that actually did something bad in the show for some reason. Conveniently left that out, but back to the point. So, Jeffrey would need to improve immensely and somehow get to the hotel and not die due to the judgment of the inhabitants, because, he's a child predator and he ate kids and he described it as cream cheese. So, yeah, he would definitely have a hard time in the hotel, but he'd need to improve so much to even think of coming close to the pearly gates. So, I'm done with showing you gameplay. Now I'm going back to talking. Jeffrey Epstein had lots of connections. So, if redeeming doesn't work, you could possibly ask a connection to send him to heaven. Well, not send him directly, but trick the angels in charge and let him into heaven. You understand what I'm getting at? He had lots of connections, and some of those connections could have gone to heaven, and maybe they were good friends, and the connection and tricks the angels to allow Jeffrey into heaven. Sins of Jeffrey Epstein are hard to list because we don't even know if he's a Mossad agent, a Russian spy, or how he even got rich. We think we know it because we think it's blackmail, but we don't really know what he did to get rich. We don't know if it's unethical or ethically, so we don't know if that's extra sins to count. He's a very confusing man, and we don't know the entire story about him. By the way, Epstein is Jewish, and Jewish people don't directly believe in hell. So, funnily enough, he could probably argue anti-Semitism to heaven because it goes against his beliefs completely. And he's an Israeli spy for what we know, so we could ask Israel for assistance to get him up to the pearly gates if they have that much power in otherworldly places. But we don't know that. Now, back to being slightly serious. Jeffrey Epstein has admitted in an interview right before his death, if I remember correctly, that there's people worse than him. And he said this verbatim, But I have a good mirror. When he was asked that if he was the devil, and he said the devil scares him, there's people that are worse than Jeffrey Epstein, and everyone can be redeemed apparently. So, what will we do out of this information? With this information, we could make out that there's a slight possibility for this man to be released from his torment, in which, he redeems a sin, as I've said hundreds of times this video. Epstein's bank account was named Baal after the Semitic god of the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, and Baal is the main opponent of the Israeli god. Usually when they're honoring this Baal god, they have ritualistic prostitution and victims of this ritual. So what I'm trying to get at is that usually the people celebrating this god are horrendous people, like Epstein, for example. They are praying to the main opponent of the Israeli god, aka Yahweh or Jehovah. What I'm saying is he's going against God, which would make his sins harder to forgive. But as I said, there's a slight chance for him to be redeemed. But how do you redeem this? I have absolutely no fucking clue. And that's the sad part for most people. The happy part that he can't be redeemed because he's a complete monster. The Epstein case is a confusing and a disgusting one, and it's even harder to convert it into an adult show and apply its logic to this horrible person. We don't even know if he's dead yet. He apparently killed himself before trial, and that's very suspicious in relation to the fact that he's a spy of sorts, and we don't even know how he sourced his riches. And I've completely forgotten the fact that Charlie would even let him into the hotel because he's such a horrific person. You know the heart of Charlie. She would probably allow him to under certain conditions, but we don't know what those conditions would be, and if he would even stay in the hotel in the first place, if that's his first thought, to be redeemed. Everything I said in this video is a hypothetical. It's just a theory. If you couldn't decide for that already, but for the ones with lower intelligence that are watching the video, and no, I don't mean that in a mean way, I'm telling you this, that it's not canon. It's just my opinion and my theory. If he could be redeemed in Hazbin Hotel. To quickly summarize this video, Jeffrey Epstein has a slight chance to redeem himself in the Hazbin Hotel, but there's a lot of changes he has to undergo, though there's something worse than his chances, and that's his bank account with Baal. One thing to mention is Epstein is known for changing his identity after his quote-unquote death, so maybe he could try and trick them with the fake identity he has made, but I don't think that's going to work, but he could try.